gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome to another Top 10 video. As always, I'm your host, Brett Murphy, and for today, we will be looking at my top 10 favorite movies of the 2010s. A couple of things I'd like to note before we hop into this list, and those are that this list is completely subjective. Like I said, this is my top 10 favorite, not the top 10 best. I'm not speaking on your behalf or anyone else's. This is completely my own personal picks. But of course, I'd like to hear your picks down in the comments as well. And for this list, I've decided to go with no honorable mentions, and I also found it best to only choose one film per director. So without further ado, let's hop right into things. Coming in at number 10 is Logan. Logan is not only one of the best superhero movies to ever come out, but easily one of the best of the past decade in general. James Mangold had the almost impossible task of trying to perfectly execute the final chapter of two characters who had been on the big screen for almost 2 full decades. Those being Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Sir Patrick Stewart's Professor X. And somehow, he managed to pull it off. This movie exceeded my expectation. It wasn't just a generic big blockbuster superhero film. This movie felt personal to both the actors and the director, which gave it such a touching and genuine aspect to the movie-going audience. It was so beautifully shot and set in a Western-styled atmosphere, with great performances across the board, and I will repeat this until the day that I die. Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart were both robbed of at least Oscar nominations for their performances. And this is the Wolverine film that we always wanted. Brutal, relentless, gory action, a magnetic score, and the perfect send-off to two iconic characters. I truthfully believe that Mangold couldn't have done any better. Coming in at number 9 is Looper. Got like an alliteration going here, got back-to-back L's. Director Rian Johnson really made a name for himself when this movie released. Starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis, as well as Emily Blunt, the movie focuses on hitmen, or better known as loopers, who are sent their targets back through time travel. Of course, I don't want to delve too deep into the story because I want you to watch this if you haven't seen it already. This movie manages to walk the fine line where it never dives too deep into the sci-fi side, nor does it dive too deep into the action side. It really gives you time to soak in the story, as well as become completely enthralled in this world, as well as give you time to ponder its bigger, more in-depth questions. This movie really is an engaging and heart-pounding thrill ride from beginning to end, with one of my favorite endings of the entire decade. Rian Johnson truly knocked it out of the park with this one. Coming in at number 8 is The Social Network. Who would have thought that a movie about the creation of Facebook could be this damn good? And that mostly falls on the performances and director David Fincher. Jesse Eisenberg is stone cold as Mark Zuckerberg. Andrew Garfield turns in a career best performance, and Justin Timberlake I think surprised everybody and showcased that he should be taken seriously as an actor. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross turned in a hypnotizing score, and I don't think anyone really realized until after the movie that Armie Hammer was only one dude. This movie keeps you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end. David Fincher truly delivered on such an excellently executed true story masterpiece. Coming in at number 7 is The Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, this movie is 99% of Leonardo DiCaprio carrying it on his shoulders. But with that being said, the supporting cast cannot go ignored either. Everyone across the board fully gives it their all and truly embraces these characters. And Martin Scorsese manages to pull off a magnificent balancing act between the comedy and the real-life drama. As the story goes along, the antics get crazier and the stakes get higher. And the fact that this is a true story is absolutely insane to me. Despite its 3-hour runtime, Scorsese manages to keep you locked in. You never for 1 second feel bored throughout the entire 180 minutes. Its comedy is on point, and the cover of its more darker issues like crime, drug abuse, as well as alcohol addiction are done very tastefully. And the biographical aspect is never too much in your face, as we have Leo DiCaprio guiding us along as Jordan Belfort throughout the majority of the story, with some fourth wall breaking moments as well as a light narration, which led to this film being not only my personal favorite Martin Scorsese film, but I believe it is his most engaging of his entire career. Coming in at number 6 is Whiplash. This was director Damien Chazelle's first widely released picture, and it ended up being not only one of the best of the decade, but a superbly crafted, nail-biting thriller. Now, it's not a thriller in the normal sense. The movie follows Miles Teller as a drummer who tries to make it into a jazz band, only to find himself in all-out mental warfare with the band's instructor. played brilliantly and maybe my best performance of the decade by J.K. Simmons. What ensues is a back and forth unlike any other, with Miles Teller trying to prove himself and J.K. Simmons shutting him down around every corner. J.K. Simmons as Fletcher wants absolute perfection and will accept nothing less, throwing a barrage of creative insults at anyone who is just slightly off tempo, and launches the occasional chair at their head, just about anything short of beating them to death with his bare hands. This movie has such a simple and elegant story. Some could even see it as an underdog story to a certain degree, and it was loosely based off director Damien Chazelle's real-life experience. And I still believe that it is Chazelle's best work to date. Coming in at number 5 is Avengers Endgame. Now I actually do prefer Endgame over a couple of movies that are yet to come, but I figured that the number 5 spot fit it nicely for now, as it's really never had the task of trying to stand the test of time quite yet. I mean, it hasn't even come out a year ago, so the passing of time will tell if it should have been a bit higher. Endgame is another one of those flicks with a massive runtime that somehow manages to keep you with its story from beginning to end. Endgame was a spectacle. That's kind of the way I can describe it. It is a big, epic, grand spectacle. And it showcased masterclass directing, masterclass acting, writing, cinematography, composing, and I really do mean masterclass. Okay, sure, there has been better performances, but having this many characters jam-packed into one movie, managing to give them all pretty equal screen time, moments to shine, moments to feel, they all really get a time in the spotlight. Pair that with some incredible top-notch visual effects, unforgettable action set pieces, a grand finale to end all grand finales, an unforgettable villain, mesmerizing cinematography, a haunting yet elegant and soon-to-be iconic score. Endgame truly does no wrong in my books. It also deserves a spot on the list for becoming the highest grossing movie of all time. And by a long shot, my favorite theater-going experience that I have ever had. Coming in at number 4 is Blade Runner 2049. Some people ask me, what is my biggest regret when it comes to movies? And I will almost always, going forward, answer with this. I missed Blade Runner 2049 in theaters. Yes, I missed it on the big screen, and I will forever be kicking myself in the ass for that one. This movie is a masterpiece, and it has no right to be, okay? It came out 40 years after the original. It shouldn't have been this good, but somehow it surpassed every expectations that anyone has had. After I first watched that movie, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. I gave it like a 9 out of 10, but as the days and weeks followed, I just kept thinking about it over and over again, mulling around with its ideas, mulling around with its themes, listening to its score over and over again, playing my favorite moments in my head non-stop, and I realized that it was love. And then it quickly ended up on my top 10 of all time list. The color scheme and the cinematography in this movie are breathtaking and truly a treasure to behold. Some of the best in cinema ever, and Roger Deakins finally got his Oscar for this movie. Ryan Gosling was the perfect casting choice, and Harrison Ford fit back into Deckard's shoes like he never left them. Ana de Armas, Jared Leto, and Sylvia Hoeks should certainly not go unnoticed either. The movie not only carries on the original's legacy very respectfully, but actually manages to surpass it in my mind. It was a sequel, but also did its own thing. It expanded the world and left room for further storytelling. It did everything the original did, but better. And to date, it truly is director Denis Villeneuve's magnum opus, with one of the best film scores in modern cinema. Coming in at number 3 is Mad Max Fury Road. Okay, this is another sequel that was long overdue, that had no right whatsoever in this entire universe to be anywhere near as good as it turned out being. Easily the best Mad Max movie, and possibly the best action movie of all time. It is so good, you don't get movies like this anymore. Big, heart-stopping stunts, a story that goes by at a breakneck pace but manages to leave room for the little things and the emotions to build, a kick-ass soundtrack, a gnarly villain, and a world that manages to be both beautiful and absolutely horrifying. This movie truly is the definition of full throttle. And the fact that the majority of this movie was done with practical effects is absolutely mind-blowing. And we can't forget that Charlize Theron as Imperator Furiosa completely steals the show. George Miller brought us back to this world after such a long hiatus, and he delivered on all fronts. Now the real question is, when are we getting that sequel? Coming in at number 2 is Interstellar. This has to be one of the most mind-boggling, spell-binding movie experiences that myself, yourself, or anyone else will ever or has ever had. And that's just the last, 20 minutes to half an hour. And the rest of the movie before that is masterfully done. Christopher Nolan delivered on the heart, the wonder, the big questions that life has always offered, a perilous journey, the tears and the triumphs, and everything in between. Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway lead an all-star cast, who leave nothing on the table and never look back. This movie is easily the most unforgettable sci-fi flick ever put to the screen. Yes, I said that, and yes, I meant what I said. I think the people who dislike this movie years and years down the road, this is going to become the next 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's going to be studied for decades and decades to come. And 50 years or more down the road, we're still going to be talking about it, we're still going to be studying it, we're still going to be analyzing every little aspect. This movie pulls no punches when it comes to the science or the human emotion. It checks off every box in my book, and is the obvious choice for runner-up of the decade for me. And coming in at number 1 in my personal favorite flick of the 2010s is Django Unchained. This movie puts Quentin Tarantino's palette on full display, showcasing grisly action, quick and witty dialogue, the darkest of humor, and extraordinary storytelling. This movie, like many others on this list, also has a massive runtime, but you really never feel it. It is remarkably well paced. And when I say I love this movie, I truly mean that I love this movie. You put everything that Quentin Tarantino has in his arsenal, plus the spectacular powers that this cast holds, mix it all together, and you get my personal favorite pick for the best film of the 2010s. So that is all from me, folks. Let me know in the comments what are your 10 favorite movies from the past decade. And while you're at it, click that little like button, hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and click that little bell icon so you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.